Good evening. My name is Cameron Davis. I am a junior majoring in accounting here at the Great Bethune Cookman University. Tonight, I am going to be talking about how color affects communication. Now, I'm going to start off by saying this is an extremely sensitive topic and it may hit home for some. And I'm intentionally, I do not mean to do this. It's just something that struck out to me when I looked at the options of what I had to talk about or choosing what I wanted to talk about, and it stood out to me because it's something that happens daily in the corporate world because I've seen it happen myself. So, with that being said, how color affects communication. It affects communication, being that nowadays people are judged just by the color of their skin, which is extremely wrong. And yes, everyone knows that it's wrong to judge someone based off their color of their skin, but others seem as though and feel as though it is not wrong. Now, when it comes to communication and how color affects it, it really mainly affects it in an aspect as far as authority, because some are raised up and brought up to not respect the opposite race. So when they get in the business world, after they get their education and go into the corporate world, they have this demeanor against the opposite race, and then it affects the communication of the business because we cannot effectively communicate with our partner, with our coworker, to get the job done, which ultimately boils down to the production of the business and what your role is in your business to help the business grow and produce. So with that being said, the communication is interrupted because there's no way that you're able to effectively do your job if you can't talk to the opposite race effectively because they don't want to talk to you. And nowadays, Black African Americans are the ones that mainly go through this. Black African Americans and the minorities, because what seems to happen is Black African Americans attend HBCUs. Most attend HBCUs, and HBCUs are not highly respected nowadays in the corporate world. Whereas you have higher D1 schools as far as University of Florida, Florida State, University of Oregon, sorry, that are more respected as far as education and how they stand in education. So with that being said, that's how the communication is erupted because to be honest, Black African Americans are not taken seriously nowadays as far as education in the corporate world. So we may have more education than the next person, than the Caucasian, the white American, but it's just still not respected just because of the color of our skin. Um, I've had personal experience. I've seen it happen. Growing up with my mother, she works in the corporate world, and she had a lot of bring your kids to work day, and I've seen how white Americans act to and react to minorities and Black African Americans. It's not a beautiful sight to see. They kind of get cold shoulder, kind of a little bit quote unquote fake to you, not being their real self. Very rude. Don't even notice you, acknowledge you, things like that, and that's very difficult to work in an area in space like that. It also affects others. It affects coworkers who see these things going down, and they really cannot say anything because from one, it has nothing to do with them, and the other, they don't want to lose their job because 9 times out of 10 it's the manager or your close coworker that's doing these things to you that have this discrimination against you. So it is very difficult for others to cope with that because if you have a heart, if you sympathize with sensitive things like this, it will be very hard for you to focus in your word space. And it affects the company because if we're focused on not respecting our coworkers and working efficiently and communicating efficiently in the corporate world or any business type of business, there's no way the business can flourish because we're so focused on not liking the next person just because of the color of their skin. So with that being said, that's all I have for today. Hopefully I didn't intrude on anybody's feelings. I just solely want to tell you and help you understand my standpoint on how color affects communication. Thank you.